Call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everybody to the February 15th meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. It's very good to see everybody out this evening. And if you would, please stand and join me in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we ask your blessings upon our meeting tonight. Open our hearts and minds that we may conduct our business with wisdom and compassion. We ask for your guidance as we discern the best path forward for our city. Help us to recognize that our strength lies in our diverse talents and experiences. We pray tonight for the people in danger of violence in Ukraine. We pray that the leaders find peaceful resolutions and that war can be avoided. We thank you for your continued blessings upon our city. May we always remember that you are the source of all that is good. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. If you, council will indulge me for a moment, I'd like to turn the meeting over briefly to our acting city manager to introduce our new building official who is in attendance and who has been working all day. And so I wanted to give the chief an opportunity to introduce him.
Well, thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. I made a promise to the building department in the county and to the administration of the county to do what we could as quickly as we could to get the building official established here for us and on an interim basis. And I'm pleased to introduce Dallas Foss to you. He is our building official. He works for Safe Built, the company that you authorized me to contract with, and I would like him to say just a few words to you.
Welcome, Mr. Foss.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Dallas Foss. I've been a building official and inspector for about 37 years between active duty and out. I've been most places all around the state doing work. Spent the last 2 days with Cheryl catching up with what's going on in the city. So look forward to getting it up and running and cleaned up.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, it's nice to meet you, and thanks for coming to introduce yourself tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one thing I neglected to add is that I gave them a goal of Wednesday. I didn't want, the county gave us 2 weeks. And I told them on Monday when we had the meeting that I would like to see everything we could do to get it done by Wednesday. They got it done today. So we are cut loose, and I will be expressing my thanks. I know the mayor is going to do likewise to the county administrator, but we certainly appreciate everything that the county did for us during this time of need.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. So we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. One is from the February 1st City Council meeting, and then one set from the February 7th special meeting of the council. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, both sets of minutes are approved. Next is persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. We do impose a 3-minute time limit from all members of the public, and we do ask that speakers come to the podium and begin with their name and city of residence. And currently I have only one. There are forms in the back of the room if you'd wish to speak. I currently only have one from Mr. Tom Mortensen. Mr. Mortensen, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening.
Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, and ladies and gentlemen in the audience. Some of you may know I represent Temple Terrace on the Community Action Board. And what I handed out to the leadership here tonight is some basic information about what we do and why we do it. I think it's important for board members to come back to the council every so often and say, hey, here's some things that we're doing, or here's problems that we are incurring. For example, many of the people in the audience probably don't even know this board exists, but it's designed to develop, plan, implement, and evaluate community service block grants. They're all designed to help low-income residents throughout Hillsborough County, which includes Temple Terrace and Plant City, etc. The Community Service Block Grant Program is a federal anti-poverty program, and it funds operations of state-administered network of local agencies. We work with Head Start and all of the various agencies that you can almost imagine in the social area of our state. We focus on moving eligible individuals and families towards self-sufficiency. The community stakeholders are trying to stake and stabilize those that are of lower income and vulnerable individuals and their families to achieve self-sufficiency through advocacy and essential services. The board itself is made up of 3 different groups of people. There's the elected officials or appointed representatives like I am. There's the low-income community that has actual representatives from different community groups and other groups of interest. You'll find a whole list of people that do that. One of the things that we're running into, even though we have a good strategic plan and working very hard to make sure that we assist people at this time with the housing crisis that we have and apartments rents going up, it's challenging, but I can tell you that we have 4 impact areas that we work on. One is educational opportunities, second is adequate affordable housing, and employment and training and internal infrastructure to support efficient and effective service delivery, compliance and sustainability in those neighborhoods that don't have representation, basically. One of the big problems that we have is because we have hybrid meetings because of the COVID times, you don't have quorums as often as we like. So we can't achieve quite as much as we'd like to. We continue to work on that. We do Zoom meetings. We try to get, there's 21 board members, so it takes quite a bit to get to our quorum. I've passed out a second brochure to you that's dealing with our educational, we have a scholarship that this board does put out. They're for $5,000 for young people that want to go to college, and they can do and fill this out. That's the information. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr.
Time's out. Thank you.
That's currently the only request I have to speak. Does anybody want to change their mind? Mrs. Snelling, welcome.
I wasn't planning to talk, but I have something.
That's quite all right. Good evening.
Good evening. Ellen Snelling, 521 Lantern Circle. And I just want to start by saying that I thank all of you for stepping up to the plate and getting so much more done than you normally would have to because of the loss of the 2 individuals recently. And especially I have to thank the chief for cloning himself as a city manager. I mean, I just really think that's above and beyond, and I'm always in support of our law enforcement, but this is really, I just want to thank you so much for what you're doing. So, what I wanted to talk to you about tonight is something I've just found out about recently. As you know, I'm with the Hillsborough County Anti-Drug Alliance, and we're work to prevent substance abuse, especially among children. So I've come to find out that there is a new product called Delta 8. You may have seen some signs around. What that is Delta 8 THC. So the original marijuana plant has Delta 9. CBD and the hemp industry has found that they can take CBD and a chemist can change that to this Delta 8 THC, and there's another form called Delta 10. I'm throwing a lot, it sounds like chemistry out there, but the problem is they're making it into candies. And I went into a gas station right here in Temple Terrace into the inside store and was able to purchase medicated original Skittles, and this has 250 milligrams of Delta 8 THC in it. And there's a lot of problems with this because here's regular Skittles, and it's the same logo basically. That's a whole different issue of copyright or trademark infringement. The problem is this is candy with sugar in it that every kid knows about. This looks just like it, but it's got a form of THC, a form of marijuana in it. And because of a gray area or a loophole in the hemp law, this is allowed. Now, 20 states in the country have banned this, the use of these products, but not Florida. So there's an issue at the federal level, state level, and possibly local. And that's one reason I wanted to bring it up, is just that if there's any way we can at least look into this at the local level of possibly, if it's going to be sold at a smoke shop that's 21 and up, that's one thing, but maybe not in our convenience stores. Or let's just try to look at possible policy to work on this. This is one I got at a smoke shop that's over near Stefano's. And the person working there was super friendly and everything. And this is not Skittles, it's called Tittles. And it has 500 milligrams of the Delta 8 THC in there. Again, it's bright, colorful, it looks like candy, fruit flavors. And then the final one, I have my little collection here, but the Flying Monkey Delta 8 gummies, watermelon flavor. So, okay, but I just wanted everybody to know what's going on and that we're gonna be looking further into it and see if there's any way we can educate the public and also possibly policy to help restrict these.
Keep us posted as to what you find.
Okay,
We'd like to hear more as you find out more.
thank you.
Are there other members of the public? Okay.
There are no proclamations tonight, or
No, sir. But
we received an invitation?
Oh, for the school, are you here for the school grant?
no, I know what, yeah, school support,
The instructional
yeah.
employee of the year, yeah. And they had extended an invitation to her.
First I'm hearing about it.
So, I do know something about it.
Yeah.
Several of us do know something about it.
Yeah.
So, here's what we will do. I don't know what happened with all the turmoil that we've been going through at City Hall. You have our deepest apologies for the mix-up, but you're here. And we know why you're here. So I will get you a proclamation, we'll catch up with you, but why don't you come up and let's tell the world why you're here. So please tell everybody what most of us already know. We're very proud of you.
So my name's Crystal Brown. I'm the principal of Temple Terrace Elementary School, and I'm very proud to share with you our parent liaison, Faith Smith, who has won the Instructional Support Employee of the Year for the entire school district.
Which is huge.
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 So out of, hundreds of finalists that were weeded down and then narrowed down to 3, they had a big event at the Strass Center, and she actually won as our representative for the entire school district. But Faith is absolutely amazing. We don't know what we would do without her at our school. She's only been with us for 2 years, and she's created in that time a parent resource room. She's created a parent resource website that she posts all kinds of information for families and things like that. She provides all kinds of everything that you could ever want or need. She is just somehow miraculously able to coordinate it all. She organizes and runs all of our family events. She truly is amazing. She does so much for our school, our students, our families, and
Thank you.
and I love her to death.
That's a lot.
Thank you, Crystal.
That's a lot.
She is amazing.
Goodness, I don't know where to look.
Tell us how you do all this.
Well, it's only my second year at Temple Terrace Elementary, but I love my job. And I just want to say thank you so much to the City of Temple Terrace, Miss Donahue, every organization that's worked with the school. We really appreciate your support. I want to give a few thank yous to the Garden Club. We recently received a grant to have a small garden at the school, so each teacher is responsible for maintaining a small earth box with their children. Thank you for all the donations of luncheons. We've had water bottles, the city grants. We've received numerous grants from the city, and thank you for your involvement. I mean, as Ms. Brown says, the school motto for Temple Terrace is together everyone achieves more, which is team. So we couldn't do what we do without all of the wonderful community members and local businesses. We've received so many donations, but I'm honored to be named the Instructional Support Employee, and I look forward to continuing my work in Temple Terrace.
Well, that's wonderful, and we're so proud that our
Oh. And she just found out that she is competing for the Instructional Support Employee of the Year for the entire state.
The States.
At the state level, so
Thank you.
I think she'll win.
That
Oh,
is
yes,
wonderful.
thank you so much.
Thank you,
Well,
we're proud of you.
We are very proud of you and thank you. And again, we've had, the past couple of weeks, we've had a lot of turmoil here with some personnel changes and all of us kind of stepping into different roles. I'm not exactly sure what happened.
No, it's
But
fabulous.
you,
Thank you
but
so
I'll tell you
much.
what, though, I would like, if the principal, before you leave, if you would leave your contact information with the city clerk, because you have it, okay. And I will get with you and I will make this up to you. We'll figure something out.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No. We'll just make another big deal and another,
It's
You know how
okay.
dangerous
Don't need
that
it.
is?
so, yeah, we will make sure that you get the proper proclamation.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
make a big deal in front of another group of people. How's that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Boy, I have completely lost my place now. Okay, so
We just needed some fun in this.
I know, this was great. So I think the next item is a resolution approving school support committee grants. And our school support committee vice chair Kingsley Kelly is, oh, no, we have Carol Dell. Last minute emergency. Welcome, Mrs. Dell. That's a light.
Is this what I'm talking to?
Nope,
Light? Oh, I just talk?
we need to take that off of there.
Kingsley's not here, but let me tell you, that is a hard act to follow.
That is a very hard act to follow.
She's done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
I have a script I'm supposed to read off of, so I
Okay.
don't want to. Good evening, I'm Carol Dell, and I'm here tonight as a representative of the School Support Committee. We thank you for your confidence in the committee's review of the grant applications and our recommendations for funding that will impact the students and the schools in our community, one of which is Temple Terrace Elementary School. As a result of your generous budget for the past year, for this year, we've been able to offer multiple opportunities for our schools to apply for things that will have an impact on their school and the students' success. In our most recent application window, we received 11 grant applications from schools in our area. After careful review and discussion by the support committee members, we are recommending funding for 9 of those grant requests for a total of $7,814.57. And those grants come from our 3 elementary schools, River Hills, Lewis and Temple Terrace, and King High School. I'd also like to say that in the discussion of how to utilize the remaining funds in a way that will have the largest impact on our area students, the support committee is still talking about that, and there is still $3,270.80 that they will be talking about how they will use that to impact our schools. So do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Dell. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions for Mrs. Dell.
I love the titles of these things.
You love the titles? You have to have a hook, you know?
If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Grants are funded. Thank you, Mrs. Dell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item of business is a resolution approving the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 pickup truck for code compliance. Code Compliance Director Tom Baroni is here to explain. Welcome, Mr. Baroni.
Good evening, Mayor Ross, Vice Mayor, council people. Tom Baroni, Code Compliance. In front of you this evening is a resolution approving the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 crew cab vehicle for the Code Compliance Department. The fiscal year 2021-22 budget includes funds for replacement of 2007 Chevy Colorado Code Compliance vehicle. We have researched local bid awards and have concluded that the most effective method is to purchase a 2022 Ford F-150 4x2 crew cab pickup in the amount of $30,949 through the Florida Sheriff's Association Light Vehicle Contract FSA 20-BEL 28.0 Heavy Equipment and Trucks FSA Vehicle 18.0. The vehicle would be purchased from DeVal Ford fleet from Jacksonville, Florida. Funds for this purchase have been allocated in account number 524.64-11. The vehicle, 2007 Chevy Colorado, will be sold through the vehicle auction process in the same manner as other city vehicles. I'll stand by for questioning.
Thank you, Director Barone. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
To approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Barone. Next item is a resolution approving the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 pickup truck for Parks and Rec. Leisure Services Director Carl Langfeld is here to explain. Welcome, Mr. Langfeld.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. Can I just say what Tom said?
Just change the numbers.
I'm coming before you requesting a resolution to approve the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-150 4x4 crew cab pickup from Duval Ford Fleet Sales in the amount of $34,123 from account 001-1896-572-6412. This vehicle will be placing a 2005 Chevy Colorado with a mere 125,602 miles on it. The purchase will be utilizing Florida Sheriff's Association contract FSA 20-VEL28.0 Heavy Equipment and Trucks, FSA 20-VEH 18.0. The current vehicle will be disposed of via Tampa Machinery Auction. I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Langfeld. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council member questions. Councilmember Chambers.
Thank you. Just curiosity on either of the trucks, are we having problems getting vehicles just like the public?
Yes, and Ray LeBlanc, through his infinite contacts, was able to track down pretty much the last two Ford F-150 pickup trucks available for our purchase, and through his contacts was able to make that happen.
They've ceased production of F-150s about 3 weeks ago, and we got these two.
Okay.
So right now, we're not having trouble as far as our needs, but we'll probably be trying to get creative towards August to pre-order for the fiscal year. There's no more F-150s being made this year.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, council members? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there discussion on the motion? I would like to just say kudos to Mr. LeBlanc and his staff, because Temple Terrace wrings everything out of these vehicles that we, and having worked for Hillsborough County, I can tell you that we cycle our vehicles out much, much sooner than this. So these folks over there really keep this fleet running, and so appreciate that. So all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays? Resolution's adopted. Thank you.
Anybody else want a truck tonight?
Sorry?
Anybody else want a?
No, I think we've done buying all the, well, there's no more trucks to buy anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So the next item is a resolution approving an agreement with ImagineNet Performance LLC for the provision of an interim city manager. And I will explain this. So I know the council, I know there's going to be some discussion about this and that, but we've had an opportunity to read the agreement, but the public has obviously not. So I'm not going to obviously read the whole contract to you, but I am going to say kind of the high points so the public has some idea of what we're doing and what we're discussing. So the proposed contract before us provides for an interim city manager who is a employee of a company. So we would contract with the company. So all the costs associated with this would just be paid as a consulting fee. We would have no additional payroll costs. So this person would not be an employee in the traditional sense. We would have a contract with the company. And as needs arise, the company has the opportunity, if necessary, to bring in other consultants that are also employees of their company. If we need help in, I don't know, fleet maintenance, which obviously we probably wouldn't, but if we need help in a certain department, they have those experts available. So the cost of it, the interim city manager is identified as Dr. Steve Spina. Dr. Spina was here at our last meeting. He is got a very long list of credentials. He has, among other degrees, he has a doctorate degree in public administration. He's an instructor at USF, and he's also a retired city manager here in Florida, and has done a couple of stints as not only as permanent city manager, but as interim city managers. His services, according to this contract, will cost the city, if approved, $3,950 a week. Again, that's all inclusive. There's no additional benefits or payroll taxes or Social Security or anything like that. That's the total cost for his services. The contract as proposed would run until October 18th, 2022, or 1 week after we appoint a replacement permanent city manager. The 1 week overlap was designed at my request to provide some transition for the new person coming in. The date was also extended at my request. They originally proposed July, which really put us under the gun for finding somebody quickly. I wanted a little more breathing room so that we could ensure that we did a thorough vetting, so I proposed to extend that, and they agreed. There are two sections of this proposed agreement that I expect we will have some discussion here on. One of them is the provision for a special assistant, an executive level assistant to the interim city manager. That person would work 18 hours a week until April the 27th. And I know we'll have a lot of discussion about why that's necessary and what the role of that person will be here in a few moments. The other provision that we probably will have some discussion about, or I want to make sure the public understands, is there's a provision for additional task orders. In other words, if Dr. Spina, as the interim city manager, identified a need that we needed help in fleet maintenance for I'm just picking on Ray, but right, if he identified a need in fleet maintenance or community development or something like that, and he had to bring in additional resources on a short-term basis, he would have the flexibility to do that. In that provision, if it is an emergency situation and that the need is necessary to keep the city services functioning, he could do that without approval up to $3,000. And I chose the $3,000 because that is enough money to get us to the next council meeting, right? So that way he's not stuck in limbo for 2 or 3 weeks waiting for the next council meeting. If it is a routine task order that's not an emergency, then he would have to come to the whole council for prior approval before he can spend anything. So the only time he could spend any of that on his own would be in an emergency. And then we capped it. So, and if necessary, we could call a special meeting of the council too. So we probably would never reach that cap. The services of the special assistant to the interim city manager, those services will cost $1,900 a week for those 18 hours. And I'm sure we will have some discussion about that. Those are the overall terms of the agreement. Obviously, it's legal document, it's 12 pages long or whatever, but those are the high points. So, prior to our discussion, are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Okay. Council members, we do have Imagine That Performance here. If you have questions for them, I'll call them up. Would you like to hear from them? Would you like to ask them questions? How would you like to proceed?
I have questions.
You have questions?
I'd questions.
Okay. Mr. Duncan, would you please?
Thank you. I'm a little, most of the agreement works out fine, but I'm a little concerned in the special assistant. We have assistants, executive assistants to the city manager's office that are quite well-versed in operations of the city. I don't understand it. I don't understand why, I guess is my biggest question.
Sure, thank you. Rob Duncan from Imagine That Performance, and I'll ask Michelle to come on up here to kind of explain a little bit, but to answer your question, this is not meant to be an administrative type of role or an executive assistant type of role. This is another functioning executive that has the capability of actually being a city manager. And the person that's going to come up that I'll introduce to you, Michelle Berger, is a former city manager. She's a former executive in the private side. And essentially what we're looking to do is extend the capacity for a very short period of time of this chair. The chief has done an incredible job in 2 weeks, and pretty much said to me, yeah, it felt like 2 months. And that's kind of the challenge. Somebody coming in new from the outside is basically going to have a line of people outside the door that want to kind of share their feelings. And the whole idea is to, for a short period of time, get additional capacity here so that all the directors, department heads can be heard from, all the electeds can be heard from in a short period of time, and make sure any challenges are maintained while the city manager is listening to everyone that needs to be heard. Oh, does that properly answer your question, or?
Well, it's an answer. I don't know that it's
So, and,
a good one, but,
right,
yeah.
so.
Okay, I understand.
Michelle, why don't you come up, and Michelle will introduce herself. She's going to be the primary person that'll be here in the very beginning, and hopefully that'll add some
Okay.
context.
Did I hear you say that wasn't a good enough answer?
I don't know.
Vice Mayor?
I'm just, I still don't understand.
The concept.
We're hiring an interim, okay, and either he can do it or he can't do it. And I didn't have the privilege of meeting the gentleman last meeting. I was not here, but, and I don't mean to sound flippant over it, but we need one, we don't need two, even though one's half-time for a short period of time. That's my only concern. Just want to make sure we're getting, for the long run, because that person will be here for roughly 6 months. Are we getting what we're asking for?
You know, Michelle Berger, former city councilwoman for 3 terms. So I understand your line of questioning, and I think it's valid. I think what we have noticed when we see transitions is, unfortunately, sometimes there's an exodus of employees, valuable employees. And so this is a support role. This is a role where I will be able to support whatever the interim city manager calls for. And if that is supporting department heads, directors as assigned, I will be doing that in an effort to offer security and offer continuity and really just expedite the process of the transition. And we don't anticipate that this role extends the full 6 months. We think it's quicker. It's really going to be reflective on how we see the comfort of the employees kind of taking place.
So your role would be, what was it, till middle of April, if I remember?
End of April.
End of April. Is that a, see what we need, is that as needed? I mean, if you come in here in the first week, we really determine that there is no need for this, is that going to be something that's self-expiring, or will it just go till the end of April irrespective of what we actually need?
I see this as just like your city manager role. We serve at the pleasure of the council. So if you get feedback that it's unnecessary, it's not productive, and you don't see there's a need for it, certainly that's, I don't want to speak for Rob, but certainly that's not a clause in the contract that's a hill to die on. The most important part is getting in position your interim city manager so that the business, the day-to-day operations of the city can take place.
Yeah.
And so for us, we want to make that as easy as possible.
Understood. Okay.
So one of the, not to interject, but one of the discussions that Mr. Duncan and I, because the only difference here is I've had the benefit of a lengthy conversation with him and you, that you guys didn't get the benefit of. One of the things that we have to remember is most of our city is functioning very well, we all know that, but we have an entire community development department that currently has no director. We don't even have a supervisor in that unit. The building inspector's kind of taking on that. So we're not sure what we don't know, because, you know, as we get in there, the chief will tell you, you know, he and I have been talking all day, every day. As we get into community development, we are concerned about some of the things that we're finding that, like, what is, we don't even know what this is, or how long it's been laying here, and so, this gives us, me anyway, some level of comfort that we can get our arms around this. Because remember, the building inspector's got buildings to inspect. And so we don't have anybody in there to really, and truthfully, I mean, if I start digging through the stuff, the chief and I had this conversation, we don't even know what we're looking at. We don't even know what this means, so.
Look, I'm not necessarily against it, I just want to make sure that, you know, at $39.50, that was one
Yeah.
rate. You tack on another $1,900 a week, that gets a little more expensive, and if we find that we don't need it, is that divisible? I mean, can we get away from that? I mean, if it's, I don't want to be
It's a fair question, and there is nothing contractually that we won't be able to back out of if it's not in the best interest of the city, okay?
but you've
The
done.
whole idea is, we don't know, let's make sure there's provisions in place so the city manager isn't tied. So again, once he's in, because he's an employee of Imagine That Performance, we set up a conflict anytime he now needs something. We didn't want him to be in a position where, okay, I can't go back to my employer saying I need more. So we wanted to make that transparent upfront, so everyone understood what we were talking about, how we were gonna support it, and the council is gonna make that decision so that now your interim manager knows, okay, I have these resources at my disposal if I need them. And this was the transition plan to make sure, because again, a city manager, steady state, yeah, you only need one, but transition isn't steady state. So getting to that steady state from what you had before, and it's not exactly the transition I think anyone would have planned, that was the idea. So you're right, we're unsure, but instead of making it 2 weeks and then having to renew every 2 weeks, we picked a term that the mayor and I thought, okay, this maybe sounds reasonable for now, and then we'll update as we need to.
Well, you have history with the city, and we took a leap of faith several years ago, and you were honest and forthright, and I appreciate your comments here. Thank you.
Councilmember Chambers.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan, does the 18 hours include the few meetings that Dr. Spinner won't be here?
No. So there's going to be 2 meetings, one in each of the next 2 months where Dr. Spinner won't be able to be present. So someone from the Imagine That team will be filling in, and as we get closer to those dates, we'll determine the right resource to handle that. But there'll be that's not going to be part of the 18 hours. That's part of the time that's Dr. Spinner's, the 3,900 for Dr. Spinner, it's covered under there. So in essence, that'll be 21 hours from one person and less from the other. So it won't be, that won't be part of the 18 hours.
Okay, so that won't be part of these extra task orders, maybe?
Correct. And to be clear, and I know since nobody has seen the document, the 18 hours will be accounted for in weekly updates to the interim manager, and will be available for him to include in the reports to council. So we have every intention of documenting who's doing what. And again, while we expect Ms. Berger to be the lead, there's also 2 other people that could be filling in the special assistant to the city manager, depending on expertise. And that's, again, we're trying to capture all the potential needs, and we're guessing, there's no reason to guess. Let's come in and your staff will tell us, okay? And that's the idea. We'll fill in, and if it's 8, 5, and 5, if it's 18, 0, and 0, we're gonna do whatever is best for the city. And same thing when it comes to somebody sitting here, we'll make sure it's the most appropriate person for that meeting.
Thank you.
And just to be real crystal clear on this, because Rob and I were Mr. Duncan and I were very specific on this. the meetings that Dr. Spina can't be here, the person who is sitting in for him is not costing us any more, right? The money that we pay for Dr. Spina includes somebody sitting here for our council meetings. So that's, we're not gonna pay any extra because he can't be here for a meeting. So I want everybody to be clear on that. Other questions? Councilmember Abel?
Do you have any existing relationship with the city in terms of previous contracts or anything?
No existing previous contracts. I was asked by the previous city manager and through the Public Works Department to assist with 2 RFPs. So the most recent mechanical contract that you awarded to ABM was run as an RFP process with members of your staff participating in a selection committee, and I assisted with that. So I helped with the drafting of the RFP, making sure it was compliant, making sure it used some best practices, and made sure you got competitive people in here. So I participated in that on an hourly rate. Okay, it wasn't an RFP for me to participate, it was just on an hourly rate below a certain threshold that was authorizable by the city manager. I was also helping with the RFP for the roof on this building. So as part of your capital plan, I was assisting, I got help Ray get the RFP out the door, helped him conduct the pre-bid meeting in this room, actually 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So the day after previous city manager was terminated, I was in City Hall for that purpose. So I have since ceased that as of helping with the answering of questions. There's questions in the RFP that need to be in by yesterday and need to be published by tomorrow. I helped out Mr. LeBlanc with those questions and also informed him because of this, it would be a conflict of interest for me to continue in that role.
So is it a done deal, or is it something that needs to be completed?
No, so right now, the RFP is something that's fully being managed by your Public Works Department, and I was just an advisor kind of helping out. So almost like a procurement type of liaison, just making sure that you were following good guidelines on procurement. For obvious reasons, it was something maybe worth doing around here. But yeah, so that procurement is still going on. The bids are due, I believe, February 23rd. Is when the bids will be due. They're due in City Hall, and staff will be able to handle that without my involvement in that role.
That's it for right now.
Councilmember Donahue?
First of all, Ms. Berger, we're not going to expect you to work on fleet management.
I was going to say,
So
if I
if you-
could just let
if
you know
you
right
know-
away,
If
not
you
my
know the difference
specialty.
between a wrench and whatever.
I do know the difference.
That's the only one I know, the wrench, so.
Yeah, thank you.
But with that said, our chief was able to step in the next morning because he knows everybody in this room. And everyone in this room went back to work the next day. And they all did their jobs because that's what we have here, is an amazing staff of employees. So nothing has changed. The city has, moved on, continues to do its work. Obviously, we had a couple holes to fill, but, that happened. With that said, this, our new interim city manager and the future city manager, they're not going to have the benefit of that. So I do appreciate the fact that we have an interim city manager who is a professional, but he still doesn't know all these players, okay? And so to have, we even talked about this a couple years ago, I do not remember when, about should we have a deputy city manager, because the city manager's job is all encompassing, and he just cannot, or she, never possibility, can't know every single thing. They can try, but, and maybe they do know, but the point is, it sure makes the job cumbersome to have to play that role. And so communication has always been a situation for us. We needed to know, and we can't dabble, but we'd really like to be able to know, because we're the ones who get stopped in the grocery store or whatever and ask those crazy questions. So I feel really good about this contract, because not only are we hiring a professional, but we're bringing in resources to support him so that he can make the decisions to move forward, while at the same time you know, if there's a situation, you're like, you know, this is something we need to address, most of it is going to continue to go on like it does, because that's what they do. I'm looking at a room full of professionals, and that's what they do. So, you know, to me, the way I look at it is, it's not dire that we look back at what happened, but it's imperative that we look forward. And that's what we're going to do with this team. I do like that you made sure that, you know, we had some things in place, and I really appreciate what you two gentlemen have done in the last 2 weeks. It's just amazing how far we've come. You know, we had one night of heartburn, and then after that, it's all been sweat equity after that. So I do appreciate what you've done, and I do like this. I do like this contract. I read it over thoroughly. So whenever you're ready for a motion, I'll be glad to.
Oh, well, I'll.
I'm not
come back to you,
doing it
but
now.
think
I know.
Councilmember Abel
Yeah,
has some-
absolutely.
I didn't see any provision in there for hours expected from the city manager. Is there any expectation that he is here in the office 40 hours per week? Should this be approved?
So we didn't contemplate writing down, because, you know, city manager job typically isn't a 40-hour-a-week job. So instead of getting into some hourly rate, that's why we put in a weekly rate. He's gonna work whatever it takes to work the job. And around here, I've been dealing with Temple Terrace for almost 10 years, and I don't remember that ever being anything close to a 40-hour-a-week job. So, yeah, he will be always available. He'll be in City Hall probably while City Hall is open. Won't be upstairs with the police 24/7, but yeah, he'll be here, and when he's not here, he'll be available. If there's a preferred working time, I'm sure if you communicate that to him, he'll oblige. Okay, but we didn't want to say, okay, 8 to 5, because when you have night meetings, et cetera, maybe it's a request that, you know, you go to, right, up to Tallahassee so there's going to be trips and things like that city manager's going to do on behalf of city council. So I don't want to set the expectation 8 to 5 he's going to be in City Hall, because quite frankly, you'll have needs of him to be not in City Hall, but he will be working 40-plus hours on a weekly basis.
I just want to be sure there's a clear expectation
Oh, yeah,
that
no,
he's
absolutely.
here as often as possible.
Absolutely.
Let me assure you that I hear what you're saying. I'm here probably more than they wish I was. And I will tell you that if we have an absentee city manager that we're paying $4,000 a week for, we will have a discussion, and the next discussion after that will be with you. So, I just, there's probably 100 things that could be in here that are not, but we just can't, we got to a point where we just can't think of every possible what if. And don't forget, there's a 30-day escape clause in here for both of us. So if they're not producing, I'm not real bashful about bringing that to you. I think you probably know that by now.
Yeah.
So, council members, other,
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
sure.
just to offer some background, I know you've received my bio, but for the public, since they don't have the information, I stand before you with 15 years of public service experience, 3 terms as a sitting city councilwoman, a senior city councilwoman in the city of Port St. Lucie, which is now the 7th largest city in the state of Florida. A lot of activity. While in that position, I was also an appointed fire commissioner for St. Lucie County Fire District, which is different than a fire department. So I've got quite an extensive background there. Also had opportunities to sit at the state legislative level on committees assigned by the state Senate president at the time. So really enjoy and love public service. And that's what made me go back and get my graduate degree in public administration. I also bring to you 3 decades of private sector. In the private sector role, most recently, I was a senior vice president of operations for a large organization, about 10,000 plus employees. Budget of over, I'm sure I'm okay to say this, over $500 million. And that I operated remotely 90% of the time. My expertise, is in building high-performance teams. Not in terminating people, not in filtering people, but bringing people together, understanding their strengths, helping them to be the best that they can be because they want to, and becoming an interdependent team, meaning they lean on each other for the best results. I think you've seen that from my conversations with Rob in many of your departments, and because of the information that Rob has received from all of you and the mayor, the employees are your number one asset. And so this came as a result of discussing how do we make sure that everything stays together in this transition. And so if it's not working, we'll happily bow out of this position. But we are here to help. And it's a reduced 18 hours a week. We will probably split some of those hours. And I intend to try to be here for all of your council meetings so that I can share some celebrations that we might learn from your department heads, your directors. And from a communication standpoint, we've already discussed how can we find out as fast as possible all the great stuff that's happening and then share it with the city internally, and then take that information and have the city manager share it with you so that you have great talking points. And then as soon as we can, share that information with the press because there's so much good happening. We need to take some of these other stories and get them to page 2 and 3 on the Google searches, right? And start celebrating the great things that are happening in Temple Terrace. And so I hope that alleviates some concerns you might have. We are here to work for you. So when it doesn't work for you, then I will see you at a different time in a different place, and Rob will continue to work with you with the interim manager. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Council members, other questions? Councilmember Abel.
This might be a finance question, but I'm wondering, what is our funding method for this?
Well, the good question. The interim, what we are doing for the interim building official contract that Chief Albano negotiated with Safe Built, we're using the community development director's salary as the funding source for that. And for this, we will use the city manager's salary as the funding source. Which should be sufficient unless we run into a bunch of unexpected task orders, and then we could be running short. Keep in mind also that we still, once we get this phase done, we still have to then go out for an RFP for a recruiting firm to identify a permanent city manager. That process will probably cost $20,000 or $30,000 too. So overall, this transition will probably run us over budget. Although hopefully we can keep their services within what we were paying the city manager, because one thing to remember is in addition to his salary, we're also paying his retirement contributions, his Social Security contributions, all the payroll taxes. So if you add all that up, right, if we have to keep them for 6 to 8 months, we should be close to even, unless we run into a bunch of unexpected task orders. If we have to keep them longer than that, all the way to the end of the contract in October, we may be running a little over. So there is that possibility.
Are these numbers available somewhere? I would like to,
The-
the numbers for what the city manager's cost was to us, including all of the benefits, in comparison to this.
Yeah, I'm sure, I don't have them in front of me, but
You
I
do?
did that analysis, and based upon what current salary was and the fringe factor, which is somewhere in the high 20s, 20% rate, it was about a wash for the existing city manager versus the interim program. What does not calculate in, there was a couple $100 of surplus available. Tasking contracts would blow it out of the water, and then the special assistant is much more than what that goes over the budget too. But keep in mind, okay, as far as it creating a negative situation within the city and within the budget. Not going to happen on the short term unless we have huge overruns or huge tasking contracts. Because keep in mind, the budget's been predicated on X number of people being hired during the year, and we still have significant number of openings, okay? So that money, just since October 1st, would more than pay for everything else, okay? So to your point, yeah, that was my first concern. How are we going to pay for this? What is it? For the city manager to the interim city manager, we save some money, a little bit, $200-300 a week, but not for the 19. But we have the people that haven't been hired, so that's accumulating in not a reserve, but we haven't spent the money, so it's kind of sort of there still in the pot. So to your point, to that question, we're covered, and I see no negative budgetary impacts as a result of that. That was my first question, as to how I was going to do. And even last week when we were talking about it, I was trying to do the math in my head, but I didn't get the final numbers until today. So we should be okay. I don't see any issues at all.
Did you get the final numbers from finance or
From finance? No, from the budget.
from the budget
Budget, yeah.
specifically? Okay.
And the other thing that, in my mind, factored into this too was, and I mentioned this the other day, if we were fortunate enough to find an interim city manager that happened to live locally, we would probably be able to do this a little cheaper. But if we have to bring somebody in who lives somewhere else, on top of what we are paying them and their contributions to Social Security and all that, we also would be expected to pay a housing allowance. So now you get into more than this. Unless you could find somebody, and maybe we could have, I don't know, but we'd be sitting here in 6 weeks before we, and Chief would be ready to kill us if we did that, so.
That
So,
was a quick reaction on
these are good questions, though, they're all questions that, yeah, they're good, so. Other questions, council members?
No.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I apologize. Rob reminded me, I forgot to tell you the most important part, which was my experience as a town manager. I don't know how I skipped over that. But what I want to contribute also is that there are mechanisms, and I would ask you to check with your finance director, but with your American Rescue Act funds, that allow for a portion of those funds to be used for administrative purposes, which you could use to offset this salary as well, if your interim and/or your second in command is being utilized. Those hours could be paid for by that. Same with certain grants. So if you are in receipt of certain grants, I would ask that you or your finance director or your interim manager review that information, because most that come from the state level have an allowance of up to 5% of those being able to be dedicated towards administrative costs, which could offset this as well.
All right.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry about that interruption.
Truthfully, Councilman, I don't want to stray off this contract to other things, but since we're talking and the public's here and they're interested, I'm concerned more about the long-term financial impact than I am this. Because I think you're going to find when we have our goal setting in March or whenever we have it, I think, I could be wrong, I don't have all the details, but I've been spending a lot of time under the hood here. And I think we're going to have a little sticker shock at getting because there's some FTEs that needed to be added. And that whole idea of an assistant city manager, hold that thought, because that's coming back around. So I don't want to get off the contract, but I'm more concerned about the long-term economic financial impact, because I think we have some ground to make up, and I don't know that we can make it all up in one chunk. But anyhow, that's where my real concern is, more so than this.
But at least we know that you're looking but we're looking.
Right.
And then we're not just going to
Well, and that's
rely
part of,
on information, partial information.
right, and that's part of the reason when Rob and I talked about this, Michelle, that's part of what we need to be looking at is right sizing and making sure that we are where we need to be with that. And I can tell you where some of the deficiencies are. I know where some of them are already. So but
It's not.
anyhow, I don't want to get too far off this, but yeah, those are the scary things that worry me, not so much this. Okay. More questions?
No.
Councilmember Donahue, I think you were going to make a motion.
I would like to make this motion. Let's see, I want to make sure I get to the right motion. I don't want to buy another truck.
You can't anyway.
No more trucks. I move to approve the resolution to approve an agreement with Imagine That Performance LLC for the provision of interim city manager services.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. I will see you tomorrow.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming. Next item is first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance vacating and partially vacating utility easements in folio number 037-376-0000. I'll open the public hearing, and City Engineer Brian McCarthy is here to explain. Welcome, Mr. McCarthy.
Good evening. Honorable Mayor, City Council, Brian McCarthy, City Engineer. Today I'm here for the first reading of the ordinance to vacate 2 utility easements within folio 376-00000 located in unincorporated Hillsborough County. City staff received a petition by Telecom Park LLC to vacate the 2 easements that contain a sanitary force main as well as a water main. In this first slide is kind of the overall footprint. So in the orange is our city boundaries. The parcel is located in unincorporated Hillsborough County and it's kind of highlighted there in green for you. Yeah. In the second slide is the general layout of the utility easements. The X's here represent what we're intending on vacating. The shaded areas is what's proposed. The existing easement is a 30-foot wide utility easement, and what's being proposed is 20 feet. Public Works staff reviewed the application and agreed that the water main and force main can fit within the 20-foot wide proposed easement. The next slide is a layout of the site. Again, just looking at the northeast corner where our easements are located. You have East Telecom Parkway there on the top part of the slide. The building footprint's kind of there in the middle with the parking lot. They have a clubhouse and pool house, and just wanted to overlay what the easements kind of look like for you as well. In blue is what we're proposing to vacate, and in red is what's being proposed where our utilities will be relocated to. Right, and then a resolution will be presented during the next city council meeting, assuming first reading gets approved. That will go into effect with the proposed utility easement agreement. The applicant is also here today to answer any questions you might have. I spoke to them before the meeting. They don't have a presentation or have any comments. And with that, I stand for questions. Thank you.
Very good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions?
No, they don't.
Very good. If not, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, providing for the partial and full vacation and dedication of easements within property identified as folio 037-376-0000 in unincorporated Hillsborough County, providing for conditions of vacation, providing for recordation, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is the ordinance acceptable? Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Ordinance is adopted on first reading and will appear for a second reading and public hearing on Tuesday, March the 1st, 2022. Next item is the first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan to ensure consistency with the Southwest Florida Water Management District's Regional Water Supply Plan adopted November of 2020. otherwise known as CPA 21-03. I'll open the public hearing, and Diego Guerra, Hillsborough County City County Planning Commission, will explain. Welcome, Mr. Guerra.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have some slides to present. Good evening. Again, Diego Guerra, Planning Commission staff. This item is the Temple Terrace CPA 2103, which is the 10-year water supply facilities work plan update.
I think it was, because it moved.
Technology. This is a publicly initiated amendment, and the 10-year water supply facility work plan is required to be updated following the regional water supply adoption, which occurred in November of 2020. The backup non-adoptable documentation included in your packets includes a detailed analysis and report that examines projections, sources, and project options. This was a multi-agency coordination effort with information provided by city staff and the Southwest Florida Water Management District. This is an update to the potable water and wastewater sections of the Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. The purpose of the update is to fulfill the statutory requirement to update the 10-year water supply facilities work plan with updates to the work plan table and minor updates to the comprehensive plan policy language as indicated in your packets. Staff examined the plan amendment with respect to the goals, objectives, and policies of the Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan and found it consistent with potable water and wastewater policies related to ensuring consistency with the comprehensive plan with the regional water supply plan. Additionally, the update is consistent with the environmental, potable water, and wastewater objectives related to conservation of water resources and meeting potable water demand. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not receive any objections from reviewing agencies and received comments from Hillsborough County, EPC, Hillsborough County Fire and Rescue, Tampa International Airport, and the city's Business Relations Office. Ladies and gentlemen, Planning Commission found TTCPA 2103 consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan and recommend to adopt a resolution and recommend City Council, to adopt a resolution to transmit and review, to transmit the amendment for comment and review. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Guerra. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? See none. Council members, if you have questions for Mr. Guerra. And I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan to ensure consistency between the city's Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace comprehensive.
Your microphone.
Thank you. An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the city's comprehensive plan to ensure consistency between the city's Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan and the Southwest Florida Water Management District's Regional Water Supply Plan by amending a portion of the text within the potable water and wastewater section of the public facilities element, and by updating and modifying the 10-year water supply facilities work plan, providing a severability clause, effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve on first public hearing and reading of the ordinance amending the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Ordinance is adopted on first reading. Ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on a date to be determined, is to be transmitted to the Department of Economic Opportunity, and they have 60 days to review it. So the date of our second reading and hearing will be determined depending on how quickly they get back. Thank you, Mr. Guerra. Next item is a public hearing approving a resolution authorizing transmittal of the proposed comprehensive plan text amendment, amending the city's comprehensive plan to ensure consistency between the city's Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan and the Southwest Florida Water Management District's Regional Water Supply Plan to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and other state reviewing agencies. So I'll open the public hearing. We need to send what we just did forward to the state. So
Good evening. I just wanted to get a little bit of FaceTime. Yes, correct. What we need to do is we need to send this to the Department of Economic Opportunity, and we need to adopt a resolution authorizing that, and we can send this off, and then we'll wait for the review to come back, and then we'll present the ordinance for second and final reading. So,
Thank you, Mr. Carpus. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? The council member questions for Senior Planner Gus Carpus. Okay, if not, I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion to authorize the transmittal of the proposed amendment?
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Thank you, Mr. Carpus. See, you made Mr. Garrett do all the hard part there. I noticed that.
Although he was waiting to see.
I know, I was waiting to see if Gus could get it right. I know, I saw that. Next item is the first public hearing and first reading of an ordinance, let me start over. First public hearing and first reading of ordinance amendment, City Code Section 1-105, Schedule of Violations and Penalties, in Section 16-7, the noise ordinance. I'll open the public hearing, and our city attorney, Pam Shoshone, will explain. And Deputy, no, he's not here.
He's not here. I was hoping to do Burns and Allen, something, but it's now just me, so. This began a few months ago because there had been some problems in a particular area of town. Also, citizens came forward and had made some complaints that there were some problems, and so we decided to take a look at our noise ordinance and see if we could do anything to that needed changing, anything that needed to perhaps help the enforcement of the current noise ordinance. And as we went through it, we discovered some things that we've decided to add to make it a little clearer, to take some things out that don't really exist anymore, to put things in that, times changed and equipment changes for the making of noise. So we added in a few things. We distributed this to all of the council members. We distributed it to the city manager, to the police chief, the fire chief, Mr. Langfeld, anybody that we thought might have some specific interest in this because it would impact an area of their work. Obviously, with the police, they've got to, and they'll be the ones that will be enforcing this. So one of the first things that we had done was we ended up changing just even the title of it. And we wanted to talk about, to deal with what has come to be known as noise pollution. And find it. The Clean Air Act was actually amended in 1990 to add a section called noise pollution. So it became part of the Clean Air Act. And noise pollution is now considered, and I did some research through the CDC, the EPA, National Geographic has written about noise pollution. And noise pollution is considered to be an unwanted or disturbing sound that affects the health and well-being of humans and other organisms. It's considered an invisible danger because you can hear it, but you can't see it. And sound is measured in decibels. There are many sounds in the environment, from rustling leaves that are only 20 to 30 decibels, or to a thunderclap, which is 120 decibels. The wail of a siren is 120 to 140 decibels. And sounds that reach 85 decibels or higher can harm a person's ears. Sound sources that exceed this threshold include familiar things, such as a power lawnmower, which is 90 decibels. Subway trains are 90 to 115, and a loud rock concert is 110 to 120 decibels. I had put up a graphic really just to give people some way to relate to this. When I talk about decibels, you don't know what that really means. We are not using decibels we did not include decibels per se in our ordinance, although many cities do use that and you have to do that measuring. We've tried to make it as simple as possible to enforce, and we've added in more the effect of distance. So we would be, and the two terms that have been so far met court approval, which is the loud and raucous standard, and we've defined that now in the ordinance, and also plainly audible. And so we've defined that in our ordinance. So we've added definitions. We added an intent to this as to why we're doing this, and that's why I'm reading some of this information from the CDC so that there's a background of understanding as to why this is necessary. I discovered in my research that it said that 1/6 of Florida's residents are affected by hearing loss, and that 12.5% of American children are estimated to have impaired hearing in one or both ears in the ages between 6 and 19. So this is a serious matter. Noise pollution also impacts the health and well-being of wildlife. Studies have shown that loud noises can cause caterpillars' heart rate to beat faster and can cause bluebirds to have fewer chicks. Animals use sound for a variety of reasons, including to navigate, find food, attract mates, and avoid predators. So noise pollution makes it difficult for them to accomplish these tasks, which affects their ability to survive. For humans, exposure to loud noise can also cause hearing loss, high blood pressure, heart disease, sleep disturbances, and stress. So, and they've discovered that children who live near, say, a noisy airport or even on noisy streets have been found to suffer from stress and other problems such as impairments in memory, attention level, and reading skills. So that's why we don't have any huge entertainment areas the way Tampa does, and I'm aware that they are discussing their noise ordinance tonight. So, and actually Mr. Mueller is monitoring that discussion this evening, so that is what he's doing, is still working on noise. I'm here to answer any questions. I incorporated many of the comments and requests that were made by council members who expressed, interest in this and comments and concerns. The police chief and I went back and forth on a number of things, and I made quite a few changes based on his input, although I've told him that he can't operate his chainsaw his tile saw early in the morning, because I let him know that a tile saw reaches over 100 decibels. So other than that, as I said, there were some areas that just weren't even clear. We didn't even know what a blower or a power fan really meant. And so we kind of took that section out and incorporated commercial blowers and fans. If somebody does use those and know what they are, we put those into the heavy equipment category. We took out the section on animals and birds, because we do have a section already in our code elsewhere that does deal with noise from animals. And so we didn't want there to be a conflict in how that is enforced. So, because we have specific requirements when, barking dogs or something, and we have specific requirements for the enforcement of that. So we took that out of here. We've tried to deal very specifically with amplified sound, because that seems to be the biggest problem, not just coming from, speakers or from a home, but out of cars. There's a lot of complaints about, you've got they're harder to catch, but you've got, everybody's experienced the car that drives up beside you and makes your windshield rattle. So we've tried to include that in here as well. So I'm here to answer any questions. or make any changes. If you want to hear the tile saw early in the morning, we can change that.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Very good. Council member questions. Councilmember Abel.
I'm looking at the penalty section, G, and it says an officer may issue a civil citation. And just to be clear, is that a police officer or a code enforcement officer? Who do we call if there's a?
We expect that this is going to be enforced by the police department, so.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question related to that one, if I might jump in. So the animal section that's in another section of our code, those animal noise complaints would continue to go to the code board, and under this section, it would be enforced by the police and go to court.
Correct.
That would be tough on the police, to have to all of a sudden be going to court.
No, but I felt that, personally, I felt it was important for this ordinance that it does go to the police.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
To do it for barking dogs.
Yeah.
That's tough. I really appreciated that change, because, you can control your radio, but you can't always control your dog, and so.
Vice Mayor Schisler.
I don't really have a question, I do have a comment, though. Is that I thought that the final result was very good, and is it going to be perfect? No. You can't be perfect. I mean, it's, my father always told me that the camel was a horse built by a committee, and it's going to be weird at first, and it's going to be difficult, but I think it's a good start. Thank you.
I mean, this is essentially our 13th version of this, so that's how it progressed and how many changes had to be made.
Yeah. Well, we said going into this, the two thorniest ordinances are sounds and signs. Those are the
Right,
thorniest.
because a
ones.
lot is left up to a person's, the judge's opinion and interpretation. So noise is a difficult thing to enforce, but I think that where you've got specific measurements and times of day, you can't argue that it's not that time of day, and you can't argue that it's not that distance.
So, Chief, wearing your police chief hat, we have a thumbs up from you on this?
To the best of my ability to convince the city attorney, yes, sir.
That was pretty good. I'm not sure what he
Starting
just
to sound
said
like
there.
a city manager.
Very good. Other questions, council members?
Now, I just have one comment that I would like to make. This is why local government works. You can't take this to Tallahassee and say, hey, we've got a problem in my neighborhood, and expect this kind of attention. And so I hope the neighbors and the citizens appreciate that they had the ability to come to us, and that we still have the rights, local rights so far.
Very good. So I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances, Chapter 1, titles, General Provisions, Article 2, Code Enforcement, Division 3, Supplemental Enforcement Procedures, subsection 1-105B, to reference City Code 16-7 in the Schedule of Violations and Penalties, amending the Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances, Chapter 16, titled Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions, Article 1, in general, subsection 16-7, noise control, to provide definitions and limitations on excessive noise within the city limits, providing for severability, providing for codification, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
There is. I'd like to approve the first public hearing and first reading of ordinance amending City Code Section 1-105, Schedule of Violations and Penalties, and Section 16.7, Noise Control.
Second.
Second.
Motion, and I think Councilmember Abel got you. A motion and a second by Councilmember Abel. Or is there discussion of the motion?
One comment, if I may.
Yes, you may, Vice Mayor.
Proper time. This is a pretty big deal, okay? And we have 5 people, the public, who are still here, or even, I don't know if there's that many. Is there any way that we can get this put on the website, on not necessarily the website, but into social media, so that if people have a problem with it, they can come back to the next meeting and not say, well, wait, I didn't know anything about it. I think if we can get it listed on our Instagram, whatever, we have the mechanism, and Ms. Laurie does a great job with that. Let's get it out there. If there's any public comment, let's get it. Let's, at the next meeting. I think that's perfect timing.
Are you saying they should speak up?
I have no objections to
Yeah,
that.
I think we should. I hope.
I have no objections to that,
I hope we do
absolutely.
that.
The city manager will, acting city manager.
Thank you, sir.
So prior to the vote, I do have one thing. I would just like to thank the city attorney and Assistant City Attorney Ernie Mueller, who's not here. This is tough. I have been involved in these ordinances at the county level a couple of times, and there's no, you said it, there's just no perfect, but I appreciate how widely you distributed the draft and how you included so many. So I appreciate the process that you went through to do this. It would have been much easier for you to just go huddle up with Ernie and come out with something, but that's not, you didn't take the easy way. You did it, so thank you. Okay, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Ordinance is adopted on first reading. The ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on Tuesday, March the 1st, 2022. Okay, it brings us to council business, or the carryover council business.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
This is for Mr. Tinch. The ARPA discussion, when are we going to have that for the projects, the wastewater projects? Or are we, or how are we going to proceed with that?
Well, right now, the ARPA fund, or the ARPA draft plan has been distributed to several of our city facilities so that it is available. In addition, is on our website. Thank you to Lori for setting it up for us. So we plan on bringing that forward on the 1st of March, the first meeting in March, for your final approval.
I have a list of questions.
Okay. We can try and address those tonight if you'd like, or we
No,
can.
I don't want to do it tonight if it's not on the agenda. so-
And if we need to, I think we even discussed maybe on the first having that an open discussion about the plan, now that you've had some time to evaluate it, and then bring it for a final resolution approval on the 15th.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah, I think that was actually our plan.
Maybe we can.
Yeah.
have-
Ex officio brought that up at our,
Okay. Okay, good, that's, because I have some questions.
okay.
Mr. Tinch, while you're up there, I know we should be directing these questions to the acting city manager. We'll have to tighten up on that. But would you give the public an update on the sidewalk project that was, we
On
had?
Ferncliff?
Yeah. You and I have met several times, but it's important that everybody kind of knows what's going on.
Absolutely. So shortly after the meeting where we had the representatives from from Ferncliff come forward and voice their concerns about no sidewalk on their street, I went out with the city engineer. We actually sat at the intersection, kind of evaluated what was going on in that region, walked the street, and have begun in earnest to look to a design project, use one of our existing engineering firms to move forward with design on that project. There was another question though that I would like to get a little clarity on, and that was brought forward that very same night, and that was potentially trying to connect South River Hills up with Biltmore Park. So I know one gentleman expressed interest in maybe trying to extend that sidewalk to allow for an access point to the park itself. And ultimately, what you would probably end up doing is connecting South River Hills to the east and west. You'd have a sidewalk corridor through that area, through Ferncliff, and then ultimately Biltmore Avenue. So right now we're poised to really kick this project off. I'd like to get, again, a little clarity as far as limits of project. We could potentially phase this in two separate projects. I think it would probably be in our best interest to try and design it as one if we do want to go that route. And I would say we'd probably be looking to go forward with construction next fiscal year. It will likely take a month or so, maybe even a month and a half to even get survey. Right now, as you can imagine with ARPA and all these other projects, survey work is at a premium. So we'll take a little time to get some survey data collected, and then we'll move forward with the design aspects. But before we really kind of begin all that, I want to kind of get a feel from council and through obviously the city manager and get the direction from him what you would like to do. Again, it would be my recommendation to go ahead and potentially design an entire sidewalk corridor. So it would basically span that distance, again, down Ferncliff, and then ultimately connect up with some existing sidewalk that exists around Biltmore Park, but down Biltmore Avenue all the way to South River Hills. So again, it just kind of connect that region.
I'll give just my feedback on that is, I just want to be careful that we don't trade one problem in for another one.
Right.
And so one of the important factors for me in this is that all these people that live on that street want this sidewalk
Yes.
across their front yard. But I know that there are other streets that if you tried to build a sidewalk across everybody's front yard, they'd be here with pitchforks. So, for me, that's one of the big questions is, you know, are we gonna be crossing somebody's front yard that doesn't want that? Or not?
And that would certainly be another aspect of the design project is to get a feel from the public first. I know they had a petition that they indicated had been signed by basically everyone on Ferncliff. And they had verbal communications with two of the residents that had not signed it. But we would like to get our hands on that, evaluate that, make sure those addresses are indeed within that area. And I think it would be part of the overall project to kind of get a feel from the public, kind of get a temperature of their appetite for a project of this nature. Because it is going to impact either the north or south side of Ferncliff. And we need to make sure the residents understand that. It's not as simple as we're just going to put a sidewalk in there. We won't have any issues with impacting maybe some of your landscaping or
Parking capacity.
parking, yeah, a lot of different things. So, you know, that will be something we'll have to bake into this project.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. With respect to this project alone, I know I spent a lot of time down there just observing and watching and just, you know, hoping nobody gets hit, myself included. So the time is of the essence on the west of Glenarvin. East of Glenarvin is not as critical as far as a safety issue. I just don't want to lose sight of that. And while I applaud the economies of scale of getting the whole project designed, I just so we can keep our foot on the pedal for getting the dangerous area fixed and giving the residents a better sense of security on that part of the street. That's, I don't know, I've said enough about that last time, so just, as long as we keep focused on that, I'm okay with that kind of an approach.
Okay.
I think the answer, probably, Mr. Tinch, is to come back to us once you've talked to everybody out there. And so, I mean, if it's $15,000 more and everybody wants that, and then we can make everybody happy, I think we're probably gonna wanna do it. If we've got somebody out there that says, oh, hell no, you're not gonna cross my, you know, okay, well, now we have to talk.
When you went, could you see just by looking, could you see a problem, the landscape that was probably all the way to the street or whatever, trees or whatever?
A few homes, but not many. It definitely looks like it lends itself to one side of the road over the other. I think that's a pretty obvious observation when on site. But again, you know, that's something that would be evaluated, both sides of the road. There are also some utility issues that would have to be addressed. But what I would envision is now that, if I'm getting kind of the sense of what you're saying, is we would, working through the city manager, then move forward, bring forward a resolution for the actual design of this project, and then start down that road, down that path. Or sidewalk, if you will.
Good.
No pun intended.
Thank you,
For
Mr.
acting
Tinch.
so quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other council business, carryover council business. Okay, new business.
I have
Mr.
three things.
Councilmember Chambers.
Okay, this is
Three things.
three
You're only
things.
allowed two at one meeting.
then,
What's your name?
if I give you one, Mr.
No problem, I got you back.
Okay. First is a board report for the code board. They are in desperate need of members. They are down one member and both alternates. They may be down two members. The city's been advertising, and they have not gotten any applicants. So out there in the TV world or the public, you guys back there, we need people to apply for the code board. It's a great group. They keep our city looking great, and we need members. So that's that board. Another one I'm on, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. Every year they do two events, and we didn't have it last year because of COVID shutdown, and they're combining both events into one. It's a regional resiliency leadership summit. It's on April 5th and 6th. That's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And along with that, this year, they're combining it with the Future of the Region Awards. And I know that's something we've applied and we've won many times. There's plaques out there. So I would like to task the staff to start looking at that. I'll provide the clerk with the website. As a member of that group, I go to that summit myself, but in the past, we've had at least one staff member. Now, it's $350, but I don't know if they've built that in a budget, but I will get with somebody to find out which staff member may want to go. So there's that. And the last thing, if you indulge me, one of the things that was lost in the transition was also on tonight was supposed to be on the agenda was the Golf and Country Club to come in, the 100-year committee for request for city services. And when they knew it wasn't on the agenda, we thought, well, we'll get it on the agenda for 2 weeks from now. But let me just give you a history of the event, and maybe they don't have to come because they really have to start advertising for this event. What they are requesting, and I don't even know if they have to, but in years past, the city council and the city used to provide a list of approved events in our city that got city services. And I'll use the Arts Festival because that's the one I'm most familiar with right now. That the Art Festival is done by a private group, but it's also co-sponsored by the city, and with that, it uses city services, mainly leisure services, to help put out fencing and trash cans and support. The Arts Festival still pays for off-duty police officers. We pay for extra sanitation. If we need light towers, which we do, the Arts Council pays for that, but the city picks them up. The Country Club is planning a concert on Saturday, May 14th. It's a Kenny Chesney cover band, but they're planning it for the First Fairway, and it'll be open and free to the public. There'll be an area like at Farm Night where there'll be a VIP area that people can buy into, but it's open to anybody, not just club members, but anybody, and it's free of charge. So what they're doing is requesting they be a city co-sponsored event. So I don't know if you would like them to come back in 2 weeks or if we can discuss that tonight.
Could they, and this is the first time this has come up since I've been on council, would it be appropriate for them to have a conversation with the city manager so that?
They have had a conversation with the previous city manager, and he knows that. They've also submitted their permit to Leisure Services, and they've had conversations with Mr. Langfeld. And part of that process of the permit, Leisure Services, the clearinghouse, they send it to all the different departments to see how many police they would need and all that. But to help them out, they would like some of these services paid for by the city, mainly that. Years past, there was a list. I don't even know if we still do that anymore, but I suggested they come before us.
Well, the first question in my mind would be a recommendation from the city manager is to, we can do this much and to bring it to us for approval of the plan that they've worked out. But I think, in my mind, that would be before they come to us, so that the city manager comes in unison with them to say, hey, this is what we think we.
And to be honest, they have done that,
Yeah.
but not
We
with.
We had a strategic planning meeting about that back on the 1st. And to my knowledge, they have already been meeting with Leisure Services. And they had a plan put together, and it was just a matter of they were going to come see us, but I hadn't heard that they had pulled the plug on that one, so.
Can we?
They
That's
didn't.
new.
but
They didn't pull the
did
plug.
get-
It just didn't get it to the
Yeah,
agenda.
get
well,
on the
there's been,
agenda.
I mean,
Yeah, well,
there's
it's-
everything
it's-
going on.
yeah.
There's
Oh,
things-
gosh, yes, yes.
Yeah, no.
So perhaps we could kind of run this to ground and bring something to us? That,
I think the direction is clear, sir. I'll make sure I pass that on. I have a whole list of things to pass on to the interim city manager.
I don't think you're gonna run into a bunch of headwind. I just think
No, it's
it's a
just
little,
for them to make ends meet and figure out their budget.
yeah,
And the event's coming up, and they have to really start
sure.
planning.
But we can't write a blank check either. We gotta know what we're approving, so,
Right, but this is a gift to the community. This is
Yeah.
a free concert.
sure.
It's not the 4th of July, you know, and that's but obviously,
Yeah.
but,
Pretty big for the city.
yeah.
Oh, no, this is, I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's gonna be a lot of headwind here. Just gonna need, we all need to
Yeah.
approve with our eyes open, knowing exactly what it is we're approving.
And they're gonna have to meet the new noise ordinance.
Yes. No tile saw, no tile saws. Anything else,
No,
Councilmember?
that's it. Thank you for the time.
Other new business, Councilmember Abel.
I have a report from the Affordable Housing Board, and they still have monies available for people who need rental and mortgage assistance for a period of up to 3 months. And I forgot the number for how much they can give you. I think it's about $4,000, but I'll confirm that. But I have several flyers that are updated that I'll pass along to the city clerk to distribute. And there's several different vendors. I didn't know this before, but there's several different vendors that people can contact for the same program that is using these county funds. So if there's any residents that you know of who are struggling, I'd like to make sure this information gets out.
Good, yeah, there are people struggling.
For sure. And in addition, I would just like to, you might have been about to do this anyway, but I'd like to initiate the conversation about how we're going to begin our search for a permanent city manager. And I don't want to rush things by any means, but I think this is one of those things that takes a lot of time. And the sooner we get started on it, the sooner we will fulfill that position, because I don't want this to drag out for 9 months or a year. So I don't really know the process for that, but how can we get the ball rolling on that?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's not my decision to make here. We will need to go out for RFP for a recruiting agency. I have not pushed that or brought that to you yet because Mr. Duncan's company has said, you know, if you can hold off because we have some input and guidance that might be helpful to you developing your RFP. And so also FCCMA that I talked to suggested the same thing. They said, you know, the importance of your RFP, getting that right will help you in the selection of a recruiting firm. So I have not pushed that, but you're right, and that's one of the first things we need to talk about there is because, yes, now I will also tell you that Chief and I have kind of been beyond our saturation point, and really unable to, I mean, focus on that until, remember the presentation I gave, you know, we stabilize, transition, recovery. We've been in stabilized, the past couple of weeks, and so, we've just haven't had the capacity to look ahead. But we've also been advised that it might be wise to wait until we get Dr. Spinnett in there, and so, but you're right, we will be bringing something soon.
Right.
A plan. And I'm not saying that to be cryptic to you, I don't have anything to give you, I don't, but I know it's a priority.
Thank you.
Well, just knowing that you're going to create an RFP for a recruiting agency is something that we need to know.
That's the first, yeah, and I'm sorry if I failed to keep you informed on that, I guess but that is the first step, is to identify a recruiting firm. And there are a bunch of them out there. And we have some of our staff in-house. I know our city attorney's got some information about some. I know Mr. Duncan's got some information about some. I've got some information about some from my colleague mayors. So that's step one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have something under new business that I need to bring up to you, and I need your permission or need to gauge your feelings on this. Recent events have highlighted a very important a gap in our rules. And this probably went years and years, and it never came up, the right situation never arose to bring this to the forefront, but the past 6 months have really brought this into relief. We have no provision in our rules for immediately placing one of our charter officers on paid administrative leave if there is an immediate threat to the interests of the city. And perhaps it's because that's never happened before, I don't know, but in our rules, if one of our charter officers had gotten arrested instead of a department director, we can't act until we can get this whole council together for an emergency council meeting. So there's a period of time that it may be as short as 4 hours per our rules, but it depends. If it happens at 8 o'clock at night, it's going to be, right, or 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever, it's going to be realistically 24 hours or maybe even longer if people are, to get everybody together. We need the capacity. The danger that can occur in the electronic age with somebody having full access to all your systems for 4 hours even is tremendous. We need the ability to lock somebody down right now and to disconnect their IT access, to freeze it, to their prox card. We cannot run the risk of having somebody at the level of a charter officer with full access to everything in our city, even for 4 hours. And so I would like to gauge your feelings on this. I don't know how to do that, and I'm not a fan of strengthening the powers of the mayor, believe me. I don't, because I don't know who's going to be the mayor forever. But I don't know any other way to do this. And I would like to gauge your feeling on this. I think we should change our rules to empower the mayor, whoever that person may be, to immediately place one of the charter officers on paid administrative leave only in extreme circumstances, which the threat to the city's interest must be immediate, it must be necessary to do it right then. And then if the mayor were to do that, it would require the mayor then to convene an emergency council meeting at the very first opportunity for the council as a whole then to make the decision, not the mayor. So this power would only be able to be used to lock the person down for however long, for that short interim between, it has to be done right now, 2 o'clock in the morning, until we can get together as a council, which would be maybe as short as 4 hours, maybe 24 hours, 48 hours, I don't know.
So you need to add that caveat, that you not only have the ability to put them on paid administrative leave, but to immediately act to
Yes.
intervene. I mean, there needs to
Yes,
be more to your
Absolutely.
verbiage.
I don't want one member of this council to have more authority than the other. I don't want the mayor to be strengthened to have, I don't want that. But I don't know who else, and the thought crossed my mind, okay, well, let the police chief. Well, what happens if the person then comes back to work and now the police chief is working for that person? That doesn't work well.
Right.
So I don't, and maybe there's another way to do it that I haven't thought of yet, but somebody needs to have I don't care about it being me, maybe it be you. Sure.
Is this a rules issue, or is this a charter issue?
The way, and I haven't talked to her yet.
Okay.
The way I read the charter,
Okay.
there's a sentence that I think, and I'm not a lawyer, but I think we can do it as a rule change. But I'm serious enough about this that even if it requires a charter change, we should do it.
No, I have no problem with that. Yeah, I'm not arguing the case. The approach will make a difference.
Yeah, I haven't talked to,
again, just hearing about this now. The charter speaks to the powers that the council has over the city manager, and that you can choose the city manager, you can hire the city manager, you can terminate. This isn't any of those. The mayor is talking, it sounds like, is putting somebody simply on administrative leave and protecting the city's information system. So I don't think that it's stepping outside what the charter says that your powers are over the city manager. This would be in addition and would probably be under the rules and regs in the disciplinary section of our code.
You draft it?
Of course.
Councilmember Chambers?
Thank you. I am all in favor of this to protect our city. However, I hope somebody would maybe contact the Florida League of Cities and see if any of their other entities that have our form of government, what provisions they have for something like this. That would help.
That's it. I'll look elsewhere. I hate reinventing a wheel. So that's where I would go first, is to look there and look to some of the other cities and counties and see what they have.
And she's hearing this for the first time because I can't give her work direction without your permission. So that's why I'm asking your blessing.
There are several prongs to this. Obviously, you don't have a red button just because you're the mayor. So you
Oh.
can't just shut this down. So that means that I'm looking at our IT director back there and she's like, wait, I have to be on call at 2:00 in the morning for the rest of my,
Yes.
nothing good ever happened after midnight. Remember what your mother told you. So, I mean, there's a lot to putting this into work. So thank you for
Well-
saying it tonight so that we can start the
There
process.
was a lot of work done
Oh,
in our recent
yeah,
experience.
I saw
was,
that.
a little
Yeah.
behind the scenes too.
Yeah.
But believe me,
Mm-hmm.
there were times when this was really making me nervous.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come to that. I mean, and just to be clear on the record, there was no time
Yeah.
during this recent investigation that I would have exercised this. I just want everybody to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
understand that. Nothing ever rose to that.
Right. With that said, was that, I'll get myself in trouble here. Was that taken care of with the person who was arrested?
Yes.
Was that immediately done to prevent any access?
Yes, I can speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
And as soon as the mayor indicated to me in reference to our previous city manager, I simply looked at Sally, and Sally did it before we left council that night.
We may never need this rule.
Yeah, hopefully
but-
not.
But we have a
Yeah.
gap.
Yeah. And you know what? This is when you fix it, when you see it. You don't say, oh, this will never happen again.
So is it okay with
It's
you
okay
guys
with
if
me.
the
Do you need a
city
motion?
attorney explores this, everybody's good?
Do we need a
Okay.
motion on this, or can we
I
just
don't-
say yes?
No, consensus is good.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have on any other new business. Board reports?
I just want to say that, Mr. Schisler, I thought it was on the agenda tonight too, so my poor husband had to go run it up here to me so that I could get it. So don't anybody tell him that was for naught, if he's watching. I didn't say that.
City manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have 3 things to share. First, I have sat in the audience and heard from more than one of you about the absence of our directors. If you'll notice, our directors are here tonight. Our directors will continue to be here unless the interim city manager changes that. But I appreciate them for being here. I spoke with them and simply asked them to be here. They're here because they hear you, and to that end, they'll continue to be here unless something changes that I'm not responsible for. So I really appreciate all of you for being here. Secondly, I have a plan for day one. It's going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll be meeting with the interim city manager and catching him up to speed with respect to the last couple weeks, with respect to things that I have identified with the assistance of our directors as being important issues that he needs to be aware of from day one. And then we will have a directors meeting at 1 o'clock. the directors that will be here are aware of that, and they'll be in attendance, and that's an opportunity. I spoke with the interim city manager this afternoon, and his plan is to keep it light, to introduce himself, to get a chance to have the directors speak to him, introduce themselves. But I've also asked the directors, that's not a time that we're going to be bringing issues before the interim city manager. That's just a meet and greet. The interim city manager plans to meet with the directors one-on-one, as I would expect that he would have, but he reassured me that that's exactly what's going to happen. That's what his plans are. So a full day scheduled for him day one, and then I will gleefully vacate the seat to him and assume my primary role as police chief. Through the process, I mean, I have to at least, there's so many things that were worked on and accomplished. The mayor's been a tremendous resource, and together we accomplished a great deal of things in the 2 weeks. But I have to have a shout out to the community development department as a whole. I could name each of the members and tell you how they supported and assisted, but instead of doing that, I just want to make you aware that they have stepped up. Maybe I will mention one. They all stepped up, but the person who bore the brunt of this the most is our building inspector, Cheryl Bennett. She immediately was thrust into a situation where she had to be our liaison with the county. She did a tremendous job. There was just a slight pause, and then with the assistance of the county and Cheryl's diligence and the entire department working together, they got it done. And I think through it all, they've just gotten back to me that they've strengthened some relationships. A number of our developers and contractors have expressed appreciation for the effort that's been made, and I think a lot of good will come of it. Do want to reach out to some of the directors that provided immediate assistance. Fire stepped up and helped us to provide support and relief of some of the backlog of work in permitting, and that's helping us to get that stuff all caught up without incurring an additional cost of a temp person to come in or incurring overtime within that section of the department. So thank you for that. Ian, Sally, I know there was a lot of effort that you had to put in as well. But everybody, and I think it's been mentioned before, we have a fantastic team. We have competent, capable, and professional directors, and maybe now more than ever. And I've always tried to make myself available to them, but during this time, I mean, it really shows the competency and the care and concern that our directors have for the city and have for one another. So thank you very much for the director's assistance, and again for the personnel within community development. They did a fantastic job. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. And just to piggyback on that, I do know Dr. Spina has plans to have one-on-ones with each of you. But please keep in mind, I don't know when he's going to do that, but he's going to be drinking from the fire hose here for a little while. So please be a little cognizant of that. If you have something that could wait a few days, if it's not a burning issue, it might be best to kind of, give him a little time to, but he will be contacting you. So just so you know that.
Does he want to help us build a house on Friday?
I think I'd rather see him here. but-
Yeah, me too. I don't know, maybe, we're all going to use those
Yeah, no,
hammers.
I'd rather see him here, so. City Attorney.
Yes, I have two things to mention. One is a lien reduction report, and this began in June of 2020. This was at a non-homesteaded property, but it was rented out. The violation was stained fence and walls. It lasted for 6 months, and a lien amount ran up to $5,075. Deputy City Attorney settled this lien. They got into compliance, and the lien settlement amount was $605.25. That covered the city's costs of $105.25, plus $500 on top of that. The check came in today. So that one is done. The next item was, there was a multifamily residential customer of our city utilities. Our finance department fortunately had them post a surety bond. They ended up running up a bill of $14,000, and the deputy city attorney made a claim with the insurance company against the surety bond, and the check came in today for $12,000, and that was as much as the bond was. So they paid out the whole entire thing. Unfortunately, we're out $2,000, but at least we collected the majority of that. That's it.
Very good, thank you. Council members, any other business?
Thank you to the staff and the directors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rough few weeks, we know.
yeah, thank you. You guys have been great.
And to you, Andy.
Chief? City attorney, anybody? Going once, going twice? Okay, we'll be adjourned.
Happy birthday, Alex.